So we've talked a little bit about the IHOP Kansas City stuff, and I've been wanting to talk about this. This is a little bit older now. This was last week where the guy, Eric Vols, the guy who is basically being the mouthpiece for IHOP Kansas City, and he's doing a terrible job at it. He just keeps on getting up and saying awful things, and some people understand it and some people don't. I did that video where I walked through his statement. We're basically just going to do that again. Uh, but I feel like it's important because these guys, they just keep on saying the same stuff and acting like, oh, this isn't a problem. It's like, this is a pretty big problem. So we're going to take a look at this. We'll just be stopping it throughout and making some comments.
I like that vest, General. It's stylish. Good morning, you guys.
Can you guys hear it okay? Let me know in the chat.
This is going to be brief. It won't be uncomfortable like some of the other updates. It's one of the most challenging parts of this job is being associated with uncomfortable feelings. But I also just want to thank you guys for the messages and the support and the prayers. This case has definitely presented some unique challenges, so please keep praying for everyone who's involved. So since General Fuller and the executive committee took over the roles and responsibilities of the executive directorship on December 22nd, that was just 3 weeks ago. I know that's a mouthful, but it's really only been 3 weeks. And the first thing that I want to just ask everyone to keep in mind is when there are reports.
Let's just stop it there for a second. Subtle. Again, this is the thing. He is a marketing guy. And I know some people don't like that I said that what he's doing for them is marketing, but it is. It is marketing. It's leveraging your story in the most convenient way to push your organization forward. And that's marketing. So it's subtle, but what he just did is, guys, be patient with us. It's only been 3 weeks, which is, in a way, it's been 3 weeks, but also it's been years and years and years that this stuff has been going on. So like he's trying to get sympathy and create this, give us a break. Even with little things like that of being like, well, since the 3 weeks, and it only has been 3 weeks. That's what these people try to do.
Of allegations of misconduct and abuse, especially when it has to do with leaders, it really can present some of the hardest challenges that a ministry could ever deal with.
Yeah, he's right.
It's common for organizations to not know how to properly respond right away. Sometimes reports can actually be ignored or not taken seriously. And there are also times when unintentionally the way that an organization responds can actually harm people that were involved.
Sometimes this happens, guys. Sometimes it happens where things aren't, people aren't listened to, and, things are just let go, and people get hurt, and sometimes people mess up in the process. This is normal. This is normal. No, it's not.
The sooner that an allegation is addressed, the more the potential for trauma and pain in the community can be avoided. These are important realities, and this leadership is keenly aware of those realities. I will say that to date, IHOP KC has appropriately handled this case, considering the cards that it has been dealt.
Based off of what? This is the thing. You can't just say, I'm just saying, it's guaranteed that we did the right thing. So far, with what we've been dealing with, we have done, everything right. Based on what standard? Who is the expert that knows this stuff? Who is saying that? Can you give that? No, because you're not an expert. So maybe you shouldn't say that. But doesn't matter with these guys, because again, it's about the institution. It's about keeping the institution in line, letting everyone know that, these leaders, they're doing the right things. They're doing everything that they should. And so we're just going to say that, given the cards they've been dealt, which is also, again, earning sympathy. So you get it, like it's been a short time and we haven't had enough time to really deal with this thing properly. So sympathy there, sympathy here of saying we haven't been given all the cards. And if we had been given the right cards, and we'd be able to deal with it in the right way. Say that to the victims, to the survivors. Hey, give us better cards, survivors. They got whatever cards they've been dealt. Okay. Like, you want to talk about getting a bad hand? Like they got the bad hand. Like, don't get up here and be like, oh, if only we had been given this information, then we'd be doing a better job and we wouldn't have messed up. Come on.
And I believe there will be a day when the diligence and the care in which this organization has handled this will be very clear. But today is not the day for that discussion. As General Fuller stated, he's committed to finding the truth.
Someday we will vindicate ourselves publicly. And, we have enough to vindicate ourselves publicly now, but we know now is not the right time to be saying that they're all liars, unless you do it on Twitter, which is what they did. They released a statement that said all these people who've been accusing them, these Jane Does, are liars. Like, they put that on Twitter, not on the video though, and not there at the church, because they know not everyone there at the church, whatever, the International House of not Pancakes, Prayers. I saw that. Was that RJ or someone saying, Carol saying Pancakes? It's always easy to jump to that, but no, it's about prayers. They serve prayers, unlimited prayers. It's not a Disney or it's not a Denny's Grand Slam. It's God's Grand Slam. All right. Anyways, they're just trying to create sympathy for themselves and say that we could vindicate ourselves, but we're not going to right now because we know it's not the right time. But even saying that is saying that, like, it's a way of vindicating yourself.
So that IHOP KC can be in a position to steward a godly and righteous process of healing and reconciliation for all affected parties, both at an individual and a community-wide level. So one of the first things that General Fuller did was he ordered a historic review of reported misconduct. That review is far...
What? You mean you didn't have that? Okay. They switched hands with General Fuller. And again, every time they say his name, I'm thinking like, I don't know. He sounds like, in my mind, I think of like Civil War era Union general coming on a horse over the mountain and being like, here's the cavalry. Like that's what I think of. But this General Fuller guy, I guess, has been in charge for a while. And I guess before he got in charge, they didn't even have this. Like, they didn't have a historical, like they haven't looked up like how many times this has happened within the organization. Like, I don't know why my camera is being so weird. Is it because I'm over here? Let me put this over here. Let's move this just a little bit. And while I'm messing around with things, guys, this red thing is bugging me. We're going to take that off. Okay, let's keep on going.
But so far we can say that for an organization this size, with 25 years of operating history, over 20,000 staff who've served here, statistically speaking, the number of known incidents is actually quite low.
Okay.
At the same time,
this is where I go, like, I went on to Twitter and I called him a shyster because he is one. And this is where I get this from. Okay. He's trying to minimize, the problem and saying it's not that big a deal. Instead of just like crying over sin and being like, how could we do this as an organization? Like, no, it's just like, when you consider the size of our organization, it hasn't happened as much, and it's minimizing the problem And also, like, based off of what stats, that's always the thing. Like, there's no, like, this guy comes out here and he just like says stuff and he just does the marketing pitch, and there's no reasons for why he says it. There's no data that he gives to say, like, based off of this or whatever. And I'm sure if you were having a conversation, he'd have something to say. But I guarantee you that's not a church. All right. When he's saying given for an organization our size, he's not saying for a church our size or for a Christian institution our size. It shouldn't happen ever. Ever. Like, it's not like, you shouldn't be like, oh, well, it's actually not that many times, so we're in the clear. Now, again, people are sinners, and I recognize that. I've been in ministry for a long time. I get that people are sinners, and some people, I've had to do stuff. Like, there are people who go to prison for some of the sins that they do within a church. I've seen that. All right. And it is a reality. So to say, like, of course it's going to happen. It shouldn't ever happen, but of course it's bound to happen because people are sinners. Now, we shouldn't take that as like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do, right? There's obviously lots of stuff that can be do. Like maybe don't give your senior pastor a deadbolt on his door. Like, there's a video going around about that. Like that's super creepy. But like, there's like lots of stuff that you could do to make sure it doesn't happen. But sinners are sinners, and people are going to sin, and they're going to sin against each other. You get more and more sinners around, and of course they're going to sin against each other, and stuff like this is bound to happen. But for him to come out and just be like, hey, you know what? It's not that bad, because when you think about it, an organization of our size, there really should be more of these. Well, first, based off of what data? Second, are you talking about a Christian institution? 3, no. Like it should never happen. But yeah, this guy, he just gets up and he just says everything for the organization. This guy, I don't know what he's like as a person. I don't know his mental state. I don't know like his personal loyalties, whatnot. But this is just getting out of hand, where he just gets up and just says stuff like completely out of nowhere based off of no data, and all while trying to bring sympathy to IHOP Kansas City and, basically throwing the survivors under the bus.
We can confidently say that a few of those reported incidents, likely they were not handled properly.
And that is the video that the survivors will be using to sue them because it's true. If he's getting up on a stage and saying it's likely that these situations were not dealt with, and he's the marketing guy and he's saying that means that it's so much worse than what people know. And he recognizes that there's at least fault, which is going to be what the lawyers will use to get these victims their much deserved justice.
From what we can tell, most of those incidents happened under the watch of leaders who are no longer here, but that doesn't change IHOP KC's responsibility to thoroughly examine and address each case.
And pay for it. But he won't say that. But again, it's just, hey guys, this probably all happened with leaders that aren't here. We're not going to tell you who those leaders are, because probably a lot of them are still in the chairs. Like they're still there. They're just not in leadership anymore. There's probably like a rotation of leaders. Maybe some of them have moved on or passed away. That kind of stuff happens. But you could trust us. Even though we're still operating under the same framework as those leaders who did mess up, and even though nothing has been done to like actually pursue righting some of these wrongs that we acknowledge have been done, you can still trust us though. We're still the good guys. I don't know about that.
Some of the cases are clear-cut and others are not. So we need to be very careful to not blur the lines between the two, and it's going to take some time to make those determinations.
Again, sympathy.
Regardless,
give us more time.
On behalf of IHOP KC, I want to apologize in advance to anyone who has experienced harm here or whose reports were not handled properly.
Okay. All right. I'm not laughing I feel like that's sincere, like that he like when I talk about him being a shyster, it's that he's promoting the brand, right? And he's using language that's deceptive to promote the brand. And I think my personal feeling is that he really believes in IHOP Kansas City and what's going on there, and he is trying to just push that forward. I think it's a detriment. Like you need to get things handled first, and then maybe you can put new leadership in, and clean your house first before you start saying, hey, let's have some people over. But when he talks about, I want to apologize in advance for things that have happened in the past, I want you to see how absurd that is. like what? Like, you're talking about things that happened with a D on the end. Like this stuff is in the past. Like I shouldn't have to be like teaching people how time works. But if it happened in the past, you can't apologize in advance. You can't like in advance in the future. I want to get ahead of this and apologize for things that happened in the past. No, that's not how time works. Like, no, you're in the present and you're apologizing for things that were mishandled in the past. No, don't try to like sugarcoat this and market this and be like, see, what I'm doing is really honorable because I'm willing to say that before we even know what these things are. He already knows what they are because he's already acknowledged that it's happened, and he's already acknowledged that some of these were not dealt with properly, so he's admitted fault. So he knows. And then to be like, in advance, what he's trying to do is create this narrative that they are trying to, like, they're doing the right thing first. But the right thing first is apologizing for the things that they did wrong in the past. So it's not the right thing first. Like, it's so weird. So weird.
It will take time, but General Fuller will get to the bottom of all of this. For context, in 2018, the Grace investigation, which most of you I know are aware of at this point, that investigation took almost a year to complete, and it was a narrow scope, only looking
See
at
that
one
little glitch
case.
there? That little glitch is because he said something that he didn't want said online, and they clipped it out. And he went and said, well, like something about how it was just like this little part that he made a mistake on as far as like an attorney's name or something. But there was something he messed up pretty significantly that he wanted to take that out of what they put out publicly. So if you weren't there in person, that little, however long that was, that's gone. And we don't know. We can only take people, who were there and say, like, what did he say? But basically, it's just more sympathy of give us a year because, or more than a year because, that scope is so small because it was such a small case and this is bigger.
So we will certainly move as fast as we can, but professional investigations must be done according to a certain legal and ethical standards, and they must be conducted in a way that doesn't cause harm to the parties involved.
Irony is dead. Let's keep going.
And of course, here we're talking about 25 years of history, and General Fuller has only been on the job for 3 weeks. So what he's accomplished in this time frame is remarkable, but we really want to ask people to just be realistic about the time frames in front of us.
That is the equivalent of these megachurch pastors and prosperity gospel preachers who have other prosperity gospel preachers come and preach for them. And before they'd be like, this guy, he's been through it. He is my best friend. If like they just like go through like this like list of all these things and how much this person means to them, even though they've met him probably like for 30 minutes in a green room somewhere at a conference. But they're just like, I would die for this man. Let's have him come on up. And it's just like, okay, whatever. You're just trying to be like the hype man. He's just trying to be the hype man for General Fuller. Again, I'm assuming hair blowing in the wind. Like I know what he looks like, but like in my mind, it's riding over one of those. He's like Christian Bale in like like a late 1800s movie.
There have actually been a few new reports of misconduct that have come in the last 3 weeks, and they were very swiftly dealt with and addressed. And as we've mentioned before, IHOP KC is working with HR experts So moving forward, no report will be ignored and no form of abuse will be tolerated.
That's great to say, but how should anyone trust them? Right? Like, again, like, it's like coming out and saying we like we have like so few cases for an organization. There's like no data to support that. There's no data to support, like now they're going to deal with things. They know that they didn't deal with things properly before, but they have no oversight. Like, obviously things are so messed up. If they're still getting more and more allegations, yeah, I'm not gonna get into it, but I could just say from firsthand experience, when there have been people on staff that have done things, and you put out that call and you say, hey, if there's anyone who knows anything or has experienced anything, come forward. If you're still, after a couple months, even with a big organization, like, of course there might be more, right? But like, if you're still getting that stuff months in, like, you're talking about a huge problem. And like, for them, obviously their organization, like, their structure is horrific. If this was still happening, if all these things were still happening and you're still getting people coming forward, obviously the structure is not there for accountability. And you're still saying, we haven't changed the structure, but you could trust us now. And now moving forward, everything will be dealt with. Like, based off of what data? Like, you're still the same structure. You're still the same people. Like, you need oversight. You need a complete, like, rehaul of everything you guys are doing behind the scenes. Who answers to who? Where's the accountability to the people who are in the chairs? Like, they need to fix so much. So it's just, what are they even talking about here of like now moving forward? I get the sentiment and I want to trust them of being like, I don't think that all these guys are like super evil people. I think they're misguided. I think they're blinded by their loyalty to an organization. But, as someone who's been there, as far as like always wanting to try to think the best of an organization or a church or a leader, you can't do that anymore. Like, you just can't, because people keep on showing themselves to be complete fakes. And you can't risk it by just being like, well, I know this guy. Do you? Do you know these people on this leadership board? Do you really?
General Fuller and the division heads have also been hosting meetings with base leaders to provide private updates, untangle some misunderstandings, receive feedback, do Q&As, and also talk about what can be expected for the near-term future here at IHOP KC. I've been able to participate in some of those meetings, and though some of those discussions have not been easy, we do appreciate the honest questions and the pursuit for truth by everyone who's participating. We've also been able to have some one-on-one meetings with those who have expressed strong critique, and we appreciate those conversations.
He's talking about that J.R. Richardson guy. Like, I don't know if you're super familiar with things going on with this story. You probably know that on Twitter, there's a few people who've been very active. And one of them is this J.R. Richardson guy. I literally know nothing about him other than that he's been going at them. I think he went there. Maybe he was even on staff. I don't know. But then they had a meeting and apparently everything was solved as far as Eric said. And then immediately J.R. Richardson was like, not really. Not really. And he's still going at him. So like, he's trying to paint it as like, we're taking everyone into consideration. We're dealing with our critics. We're dealing with all these issues. We're trying to be really honest and transparent about what we're doing. But at the same time, he's nuancing everything and burying everything under like this language that's super deceptive. Like, he might be having meetings, but he's not getting anything resolved as far as some of these critics.
And as schedules permit, we'll continue to have those meetings, so please don't stop requesting those. So where are we at with regards to the investigation into the allegations of Mike Bickle? IHOP KC's independent investigator has been hard at work for 6 weeks. She has been retained to conduct a truly independent investigation, and she has the qualifications to find out the truth. IHOP KC has also confirmed that a final report will be released directly from the investigator. That means that IHOP KC is not going to have the ability to see the report first and edit the content before it gets released. It will be independently and directly released
all right.
from the investigator.
That sounds good. But let's just listen to that first part one more time.
IHOP KC has also confirmed that a final report will be.
Last time I talked about these guys, we talked about how they described that there would be a report that would get out there. And I said, like, what is being buried in that is that, one, you don't know who this report is coming from, whether it's coming from the third-party investigators or from IHOP Kansas City, whether it's like everything or whether it's a summarization of everything. And with that meaning, like, some things are just going to be edited out, or people don't need to know that kind of stuff. And we got little guy coming like really hard. H thinks it's really funny to come and interrupt streams now. Like, he's giggling his head off as he comes down here to be like, can I have this? And it's like, you can't have that. But I think he went upstairs. What was I saying? These guys, they want to say that there's a report that's going to be coming, but they say a final report. So they threw in final, thinking like that will sound so conclusive, right? But they don't say the final report, meaning that it is like everything that they found and they're just pushing it out there and letting people be the judge. They're saying a final report will come out, that something is going to be put out. And now what's good is that they're saying that it's coming from this third-party investigative team, which, there have been all kinds of people who've talked about like what that organization actually is. But let's just take them at their word and say, okay, it is a third-party investigation, and it's like all of that. To say a final report is coming, and I know it sounds like I'm really picking at words, but I feel like you have to with some of this marketing stuff. What that means to me is that they're going to give a report and it's going to come from them. But what that isn't being said, they're saying like, oh yeah, we won't be able to see it first off. But is that like they got a report and they edited that stuff and then they say a final report, like, oh, this is the final one. Like, is it everything, or is it the final report or a final report? Like, is there another report that's coming and people get to edit that, or that they get to have, maybe they don't get shown that report, but they get to have input on what kind of stuff gets put out to the public, and then they make a final report. Like, this is the kind of stuff that really matters. And I know it sounds like it's just like, wait, you're splitting hairs over one word? Yeah, because that word matters. The final report matters, not a final report. Like, that stuff really matters. Go talk to a Mormon about the Trinity. That stuff matters. Let's finish this up.
Directly from the investigator. That means that IHOP KC is not going to have the ability to see the report first and edit the content before it gets released. It will be independently and directly released from the investigator.
That report will be.
Though we don't know the details, we know that the investigator has conducted numerous interviews with individuals who claim to have information related to the allegations against Mike Bickle. But we also know that she has not been permitted to speak to any of the alleged victims or members of the advocate group. And as a result, IHOP KC still has not been able to verify the allegations that were presented by the advocate group last October. But IHOP KC wants the truth. We're going to get the truth no matter what it is, but the reality is this. In order for this to work, there really are two requirements that we need to see met. The first, the investigation must have the ability to be truly independent, and we have that. But number two, the investigation must legitimately appear to those as truly independent, to those that are involved. It has to appear to be truly independent to the parties involved. So those are related but not identical concepts. So we have number one covered. We have an independent investigator, but number two is the crux. We need community buy-in. IHOP's conviction is that a complete investigation should be conducted into the allegations of misconduct, and we believe our investigator would be able to accomplish this. But the advocate group does not feel comfortable with our approach, and we want them to feel comfortable. We cannot verify the allegations against Mike Bickle without their cooperation, and this community cannot find rest until it has the truth about those allegations.
Poor us.
So General Fuller has met with key members of the advocate.
That is not the survivor's fault. All right? That is not the victim's fault of, oh, well, we just have unrest. Like, because I bet things are chaotic as heck over there. All right? Like, there's probably so much feuding and going back and forth and, like, different strategies about how to handle different things. And, like, it creates a lot of chaos for an organization. I'm sure that's true. But that's nothing compared to what the survivors have gone through. And it's not their fault. If they're wanting to make sure that legally they're not going to have anything come back to bite them in the butt, and then also that actual justice is done, including reformation of the restructuring of accountability there at IHOP Kansas City. All right. They are free to pursue that however they want. It is not their fault that they don't want to cooperate with this shady organization that has proven themselves to be shady by saying, like, they just said it. Like, this guy just said it. They've had it going on for so long, right? Like, they know of cases that have been mishandled. So why should the survivors trust them now, right? I think that they're probably going about it a better way of going with an organization that they can trust that has been proven to be trustworthy when it comes to these kinds of situations. And what he's trying to do is to publicly guilt trip them and say it's really on them. It's really on them for not coming to us with this information and going about this a different way. And until they come to us about this, one, we can't move forward, which is convenient when you don't want to do stuff. But also, we can't have rest as an organization. So it's really on them. Everything that's going on right now, all like the chaos of this, it's really on the survivors. Like, this is really bad about how to handle like all of this. I know some people might just watch this stuff and be like, I don't know, I don't see it. But when you really dig through these words and understand like the implications, like the way that IHOP Kansas City has done this is horrific. Like, it's just a really, really awful handling of the situation, even if their motives are good. All right. Again, I'm not going after motives. All right. I think there's some blind trust of leaders and the brand there at IHOP Kansas City by specifically this guy and others. But I'm not going to go into motives for why they're doing these things. I'm saying that what they're doing is messed up in their words. Like, there are implications to what they're saying here. But let's finish this thing up.
Group on multiple occasions and in multiple settings in an effort to hear their concerns and establish trust. And with authorization and direction from General Fuller, the David House Agency has been working privately with the consultant of the advocate group on a step-by-step approach toward a mutually agreed-upon investigation moving forward. This would be one that the alleged victims would have the ability to agree on and accept. To be clear, we have not yet reached an agreement, but we are hopeful that we will. IHOP KC's focus remains a thorough and complete investigation of the reported allegations, and IHOP KC pledges to then implement any and all policy changes, procedures, and cultural changes to ensure that IHOP KC does not travel down this difficult road again.